When you're finally ready to, yeah, like really take radical responsibility and like take your life back as your own, then this is the poem. And it's called Spoiler Alert.
Now on Vortex Vision, I am delighted to be sitting here with my very dear friend, poet queen, Chelsie Diane. And as great as she is as a poet, she's an even more exquisite, if it's possible, poetry teacher. Chelsie teaches these incredible poetry classes to women all around the world to help them liberate their lives, take big risks, and take up more space. She's deeply unapologetic, and I'm just obsessed. Like, as you can tell, I am obsessed with this woman. And today we're gonna do some writing exercises to help you reshape your life, make it over, step into a new paradigm, and I'm gonna do them with you because it's more fun that way. So, oh my God.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's gonna be so good. So, okay, before we get into an exercise, tell me why you like to use poetry as a tool for reshaping someone's life.
It saved my life. Let's see, it was right before my Saturn return. I was 28 years old. I went to medical school, got married at 20 years old to a doctor, had 3 children, and I really had given up on my dreams. I had really lost myself. I was a shell of a human. Sometimes I would go up to the mirror and hold on to the bathroom counter and get as close as I can and just be like, who are you? And just try to like search for a glimpse of myself. And I was at my end one time when my ex-husband and I were at a medical conference in Vegas. And we were staying at Caesar's Palace, and all year, like the only thing I had to look forward to was so silly, but it was riding this roller coaster in Vegas. It was like when the roller coaster.
Yeah, that's what you want to do.
Exactly, and it was just like this thing. It was like, when I get there, I'm gonna ride that was like, I mean, it's insanity to think of this now, that like that was freedom for me.
Yeah.
And I was just, 3 children under 3 and working, and I had lost touch of my soul, my poetry. I've been writing poetry since I was 4 years old, but there was these years that I just had stopped, and I was dying. And I remember we went out to dinner and we were walking back to the room, and I saw the line for the roller coaster. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go ride it. I'm gonna go ride it. And he was like, no, like, and he's very like logical, and like, he's like, and he's not an abusive man. He was just very, and I was so, I want to be really clear that I had chose this life. I wasn't a victim to it.
Right.
I had built my own cage, and it was a diamond cage, you know? And I saw this and lost myself in it. I was like, I saw this roller coaster and I run toward it, and I'm like, no, I'm going. I have to go, I'm going. And I dropped his hand and I ran towards the roller coaster, and I'm in line, and he's just standing there on the sidewalk, and he's like, just waited there and just kind of shook his head. And I realized as I get up to pay that I don't have a credit card. I don't have money to ride this. And to be a 28-year-old woman and just like a complete child, and like in this life that I had chosen, like complete reliance on him, in a way that was, that moment was one of the most heartbreaking moments probably of my whole life. I had no power to even ride this. And so I walk back like a child to him with my head down, and I like walk back to him, and he's like, yeah, how are you gonna do that? And we walked back to the room. And I every step to the room, I just thought, I have no reason to live. Like, there's no reason. And I just planned that, like, when he fell asleep, I would take my life. And he fell asleep, and we were in like the penthouse suite of like the Caesar Palace, and there's the balcony. And I shut the door, And I remember I like unbuttoned my silk pajamas from my mother-in-law and like watched them fall first. And something in me was like, just the only thing that separated me from all the life on the street and the bachelorette parties and the music and the roller coaster and life was jumping. I thought maybe next life, but I have children at home. There's no way I can stay until they're 18, and there's no way I can leave him. Like, it wasn't even an option for me. And to leave I was just, I was in madness. And I pulled up a chair from the inside of the room and I got on top of it. And the craziest, like right before, and I was shaking, it was freezing, and I was holding onto the balcony. And right before I decided to step over the edge, like right before, something inside me, whether it's God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, like there was a voice, myself, my higher self. I believe it's all the same, but there was a voice that said, try this first. And I was like, what? And it was, try writing a poem every single day for a year and just see if you still want to jump at the end of a year, then jump. But try this first. And at the time I thought it was so silly, and I was actually like, what the fuck? And I was bawling and shaking and about to kill myself. And I was like, a poem? Like that's gonna say, what? And I was like, okay. And I did. And I climbed down and I wrote a poem, even though it was shit, whatever. And I didn't miss a single day for a year. And what I found out by doing that every single day was that it was actually the most profound thing that could ever be told to me, because I was actually just letting my knowing live outside my body, like through my wrist on the page every single day. I was telling my deepest knowing was telling myself, next right step by next right step by next right step. And within a year, I wrote anonymously with a peony as my profile picture. It was actually just like this, just as my picture. And my ex-husband didn't know that I had this account. Nobody knew. And women everywhere started finding me and saying, me too, me too, me too, me too. And I built this community without my face ever being shown of women all over the world within a year. And one day I was in Cabo and we were working on our marriage, and about, I don't know, it was like 8 months in, and I linked my accounts on accident with my business account, and everyone was alerted. You know how you get the thing, Chelsie is writing as poems and peonies. And I got texts from my father, from my neighbor, from like my high school girlfriends. They were like, what is this? From people in the church.
Oh God.
And I was like, and it was the deepest truth of me, It was like the deepest pearl in me dug out. And I was like, oh shit. And I remember we were in Cabo and I took 4 shots. I was like, I gotta go. It was at dinner. And I left him at dinner and I took 4 shots of tequila, and I had to decide whether I was gonna delete this, delete my truth or just say, fuck it. And I posted a selfie and I put me.
Nice.
And just owned my truth for the first time. And within 3 months after that, I had separated from my ex-husband. And then 2 months later, I had moved to California with my children. We all did. And I started an entirely new life. And it was really because I was writing the next right step. And I had this community of women that were championing me. For the first time in my life, I had other women that were like, yes, just saying yes to me. And so when I started my business, my heart was, I was like, oh, because I went to medical school first, and I know about, the subconscious. And I remember in neurobiology, they were talking about quantum theory and how we can, we create our realities. And I thought, well, to create your reality, you have to reach the the innermost depth of your subconscious mind. Because that's what's creating your reality. That's what's in charge of everything.
Absolutely.
And the way to do that in every human is through their poetry. That's the deepest part of their subconscious mind. Some people that call poetry, it's not poetry because it's not from where you're dreaming. It's only poetry if it's from where you're dreaming. And that's what Robert Olin Butler, the great Pulitzer Prize poet, and every great poet knows that.
I was really experimenting with what if science and art met, and what would happen at that junction with quantum theory and creating our reality and tapping into our deepest desires.
Yes.
But before I did that, I had to live as if my desires were holy. And I'd been living my whole life as if my desires were not holy. And so one day I woke up and I was like, what if the holiest thing in the world for women and men, everyone, is if we believed our desire was holy?
Yeah.
And I really started by faking it until I made it. And I know you teach this, and it's what I did. I was just like, okay, this doesn't feel holy, but like, what if I faked it like it was? What if I lived as if my desire was holy? What if I gave myself a permission slip, radical permission to take like complete responsibility for the life I've created, not play the victim. Take radical responsibility for my side of the street, and to say, okay, I built this entire life and I'm in the middle of it. And so yeah, when I burn it down, I'm gonna feel the flames. You know? People think it's like all those memes, like you're sitting in the car and the house is on fire, right? No, when you burn down your life, you're strapped to the stake in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And your skin is melting off. Joan of Arc, right? And so that's why I like love teaching her from her execution site. That was like one of the most powerful classes, because I realized like, okay, yeah, you want to burn down your life, you're gonna feel it melt away. And so I dared to take responsibility, to feel the flames, to stand in the fire, and in that alchemical space where it's melting to gold, be like, to just keep going.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's this tale about Joan of Arc, and it's true. It's not a tale. It's what everyone wrote about her after her burning, and they said her heart didn't burn.
Ugh.
So they burnt it again, and it didn't burn. The only thing left was her heart, and they just threw it into the river.
Ugh.
And so like when I was going through this with my life, I just kept writing, your heart will not burn. And it didn't. Yeah. And I feel like if women really knew that, if they really could believe that their heart won't burn, yeah, they can create everything from that space. It's thrown into a river. You know, it's like you're in flow.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started this entire business. My entire life is built around women seeing themselves, and women writing their lives into existence and realizing they are the author of their story.
Yeah.
And so would you like to do a writing prompt with me?
I would love to do a writing prompt with
Okay.
you. I would love to. And for
Yes,
our audience,
yes, yeah.
is there anything they need to know about, is there a zone or a state that's best for them to get into before they do this? What's gonna help them
Absolutely.
sink in?
Yes. So I use a couple different ways to like get to the poem. And the first way is very Julia Cameron, which is, skimming 3 pages off the surface. So it's really important to just write at the top of the page. I'm giving, or you could even put, this is shit, I like to put, or I'm giving myself permission to write shit.
Yeah.
and then to just write everything you're thinking and just allow yourself to like let your subconscious come to the, you know, every thought. It's like meditation, and then just skim it off. And so usually I do it on a yellow pad, and I just do 3 pages. And then I really like, if I'm really going in, then I like to get into dream state.
Okay.
Which is usually about 10 minutes of meditation on the couch, laying down, and you'll get images. And if you can pull from those images,
Oh, wow.
from your dream state, then you are pulling from your subconscious. And if you are brave enough to be weird and to write it and to touch it and to play with it, then those are the deepest subconscious state that you can play with for poetry. And to get to the poem, we have to go really deep. We have to get
You got
to
to
the
excavate.
deepest.
This
You
is
have to
like panning
excavate.
for gold, right? You got to get in the muck.
Absolutely. And so a lot of times what I feel like when women come to me with poetry is they're giving me the muck, and that's great. But what I'm really good at, and I've been kind of known to be like a Simon Cowell of poetry, but what I'm good at...
What have you got then?
Right? And so, oh my God. And it's like, why did that turn me on? So I feel like, but what's really important is to be like, what's the deeper truth here? You know, a lot of times women will read lengthy poems to me, and I'll say, what was that about?
Because all they talk about is the moon and the...
Yes.
River.
And I'm like, get in your bot. Like, what happened? What about the crumbs on the floor? Like, what happened what did you see under the table when your dad beat you and that's all you could see? Like, what about love? How did you feel? You know, and like, but one thing that I really like to do is when women are like reading their poetry is to say, what was that about? Because one time I asked that question to a woman, and she said, it was about how the only time my father ever read bedtime stories to me was when he was drunk. And that's the poem. And I said, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Now go from there. And it was actually this beautiful, and like what the bedtime stories were like, how they changed. Fascinating.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so moving. So I think like sometimes the deeper truth is actually just the simplest, most provocative sentence you can write. Sit down at a typewriter and bleed, right? So if you want, we could do it right now.
Let's do it.
Do you want to bleed?
Yeah.
I have this this method that I use, and it's called spoiler alert.
Okay.
And it's about when you're ready, after you've skimmed off the surface, and you realize that you're writing your life into existence, and you're done writing about your trauma, and you're ready to move into
creation. Yes.
When you're finally ready to really take radical responsibility and like take your life back as your own, then this is the poem. And it's called Spoiler Alert. And so I'll read mine first. And then I want you all to write Spoiler Alert at the top of your page and write your own. Spoiler. So I wrote this in, I don't know, it was like 2018. And everything came true. So, spoiler alert, or is coming true, you know? You write 22,000 more poems. You fire your agent. Women keep coming to your class. They keep coming and coming and coming and coming. Your mother dies without saying she's proud of you. The lover that paints you never calls, not once after you sleep with him. Chelsie, you check your phone for 3 years and never, not once does he call. The cancer never comes back until you're very old and very ready. The kids never drown in the ocean or get kidnapped from a Target. And your Jeep never rolls down the canyon. A coyote never eats your cat. your book gets published, and that one too. Oh, and that, my God, that will be a surprise. One of your daughters is gay, thank God. You go to Bali in France and walk 10,000 more miles, letting every lesser love move through you like air, like air, like air. You give a TED talk, and let me tell you, you give thousands of more TEDs a talk. You finally find a skincare routine that doesn't break you out like a 14-year-old boy. You run another marathon. Your ex-husband remarries this year. There's a barbecue for one of your children's birthdays, and he's holding his new baby in his new backyard with his new wife. He has to flip a steak. He hands you the baby. You marry again. A few people sit on old quilts. He never not once takes his eyes off you. You have antique rings you engrave. He's not scared of you. He's old enough to lose his mind over Roadhead. He calls you star. He calls you finally. You leave him poems on the breakfast table. And he makes you a mosaic into a peony out of glass that you broke. You call him a pain in the ass. You call him all day long. You call him your son, your entire fucking son, your king, your son, God, king. There's a morning you never forget. Not ever. Not when you're 43, the day you moved to Europe. Not when you're 54 and thinking of Botox. And not when you're 63 and holding your third grandchild. And not when you're 98 letting go of their hand. You're standing across the living room, holding your old cross-eyed cat after he made you tea, and you stop. You stop and you say, this is my life. This is my life. This is my life.
Oh my God, it's so good. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. Love you.
Oh my God.
So I think that it would be amazing if all of us wrote our own spoiler alert poem.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I need my makeup fixed.
So write spoiler alert at the top of your page. And a couple tips that I like to give my poets is to start with you, and that you being yourself. And so it's actually you commanding. You are telling your subconscious what's going to happen.
Right.
And so be really careful about what you write in this poem. Oftentimes, because it will come true. Oftentimes what I have my students doing is getting a clean notebook just for their manifestation. So everything in this comes true is what I have them write at the top. Everything I write in here comes true. And that notebook is the holy book. We don't write about past traumas with men. We don't write about
Current traumas.
We
with
don't
men.
write about any of it. It's like this is what's coming for me, you know.
Yeah.
And so in the spoiler alert, I like to say like I said, like you write. My first line was you write 20,000 more poems. And it's your deepest desire. And so, but what you got to believe as you're writing this is that your desires are holy, and you have permission. And you'll notice your subconscious will go to something really big, like a best-selling book or moving to Europe or something that you really deeply want, and you'll shut it down and you'll be like, no, I need to be more reasonable. Instead of a best-selling book, you'll just say you write a book. Or like instead of saying moving to Europe, you'll be like, you move to Idaho. Like, you know what I mean? It's like this is in reach. But it's really important that your deepest desires are in the poem, because it's like, you know, when you're a main character and you audition for a supporting role, the director doesn't want you in that role, because the director's gonna be like, that person is shining too bright, and the attention, you know, the scene is gonna be on them. And so you will not get the role. You will be rejected every time when you're a main character applying for a supporting role. And so make sure that you are writing your deepest desire and being true to that. as you write your spoiler alert poem. Another thing that I like to do is put specifics, like
Okay.
your age number. Like I said, when you're 43, you
Yeah.
move to Europe.
Right.
When you're 63, your third grandchild is born, you know, like, I even put my death year, 98, you know, like, I don't want to do C99. Like, that'll be good. Like, I think it's important that you, write,
Like timestamp some of these things.
it is, and there's two things at play. Yes, you're creating your existence, but just as equal and powerful force within you is actually just telling you what is meant for you. So it's both of these at play, right? It's your subconscious saying, if you want it, this is it. This is in your vortex of creation. If you want it, it's there. And then there's also you like reaching for it, right? And putting it down. So yeah, it's about pulling it out and putting it on the page.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Dara,
Yes.
would you read some of your spoiler alert for us?
I would love to. Okay. You create a pink empire and liberate 1 million women.
Okay, first line. First line.
Yeah. Okay. He turns out to be the one, the real one, and he never makes you anxious. You build a house with a beautiful view, high on a hill, so stunning you almost feel embarrassed about it. You never have children and you never regret it. And then this is when you said, don't let the pen leave the paper.
Yes.
You become a living saint and they have parades in your honor.
Okay.
You dye your hair every color of the rainbow and you never fit in, but you constantly call in your perfect magical people. And this is when I started smiling. You and your best friends are like the modern day Cher and Stevie Nicks and Tina Turner. And this is when I really smiled. We all have fabulous stage shows with full pyrotechnics and screaming fans and insane merch.
I'm obsessed.
And the final line is, you have many more dogs and own many more diamonds, but you prefer the dogs.
Okay. Can I see this for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would love it if you. This is beautiful. I would love it if you wrote an entire. I mean, some of these are entire poems in themselves. So I'm going to read some first lines out of here.
Okay.
You create a pink empire and liberate 1 million women. You become a living saint and they have parades in your honor. I mean,
What is that?
Gala.
That's your deepest subconscious fantasy.
It's and then you have many more dogs and own many more diamonds, but you prefer the dogs. Dang.
That makes me so happy to think about.
It's so great.
I love it.
Those are my it's so great.
Can we hear
It's
yours?
quality.
Or at least what you wrote for
Oh
now?
God, actually, yeah. So it's mine is a little bit insane.
I would hope
Yours
so.
Okay. So
More
my-
insane than becoming a living saint, because that's really pushing the edges.
I write things over and over and over. That's kind of crazy. But
Okay.
I'll read you something that's been on my. I didn't realize I was going to read this, but I read you something that's been on my subconscious that just came through.
Okay.
Sometimes you know how you have the feeling on your subconscious, but you don't get the line. Mm-hmm. And I got the line sitting with you.
Ah,
it was in
yay.
flow.
Yes.
And it sums me up. I don't want it unless I'd be devastated if I lost it. And that feels like the life that I've created. Every friendship, every human, every love in my life is so deeply rooted in like magic that I would be devastated if I lost it.
Yeah.
And I went on a date the other day, and the Hello Kitty art guy.
Yeah.
And he's got Hello Kitty art, and I was like, "There's no, you don't care, you know." Like he could never have the, and it would never have the power to devastate me. And I think that is just
allowing yourself to call in the deepest, truest love in all forms. And the real level up for me is in the last year, I have cleared everything in my life that's not deeply all-encompassing.
I love that idea, like supporting actors, major and minor things.
Yes! Wow. It's that level of like really honing in on the magic.
And being deeply unapologetic for
Totally.
your standards, your desires.
Absolutely. Getting really busy.
Yeah. This has been so special. And, you know, you're my dear friend, but we've never written poetry in my house together, and that felt really special.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
It's
for
my
gracing
greatest
us.
honor.
Gracing us is what the muses do, and that's what you've done.
Thank you.
So how can people find you?
My Instagram is Poems and Peonies, and that's where I write poetry. I have a book called Poems and Peonies. And on my website is chelsiediane.com, and every class I've ever taught is there, live and recorded, and prompts, daily writing prompts and writing playlists. It's all under Poems and Power.
And it's very life-changing. So if you feel inspired by this, and I don't know how you couldn't, make sure you check that out.
Thank you.
I love
Thank
you.
you. I
Thanks,
love you.
baby. That was so great.
It was so great.